And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes with myself, Michael Burgio, Mark Novak. And this morning, we're going to be talking about the changes and the announcement from our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, last night, and some key points, mainly what affects the real estate industry moving forward. And let's take it away, Mark. So when was it and where did you see it?
So it was on last night at approximately 7 o'clock,
Yes.
7:30, and he addressed the nation for 30 minutes. The part that I wanted to learn about and discuss was the part about commercial tenancies and the government's approach that we were all waiting for. We're all waiting for to see what sort of direction the government was going to take, because some countries have just said, guys, you don't have to pay rent, or they've done a rent freeze. Some countries have done nothing. So what's he done, Michael?
Yeah, so basically he said, let's be adults and work it out ourselves, which I to be honest, it wasn't even one of the answers. Well, it didn't even cross my mind that that would be the outcome of it. But now, like, as I'm sort of thinking about it, I'm thinking that's probably genius. It's grow up. You're all business people. And the biggest thing I think we can take out, he said, show mercy, chat with your banks, and plan it for 6 months. So don't just think from a landlord's point of view, all right, I'll give you a week reduction. It's a 6-month plan, and have mercy and sit together. Lots of viewers on Mark, huge numbers this morning, and work it out yourselves. Now, Mark, as a business owner, as a landlord, what's your take on that?
Look, it's got to be absorbed by us anyway. What people don't realise is if the government comes along and starts cutting checks, you're going to pay for it anyway.
Yeah.
If the government comes along and says, okay, well, we're going to do rent relief to the tune of 50% of the rent, well, that rental relief is going to come out of everybody's pockets over the next 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year anyway. So I guess what he's done, he's been, I do support it, and I think he's been very commercial about it, where he's turned around and said, guys, every circumstance is different. We've been using the word a lot in the last couple of days with our tenants and landlords, saying collaboration.
Yeah.
It's not a negotiation where one person's trying to get over the other person and the agent's working, for the landlord exclusively. Like, it is a collaboration of the agent, of the landlord, of the tenant, of the bank. It's a collaboration of all of those parties to see individually, case by case, what we can do to get a bridge to the other side.
Yeah. And I think thanks, Catherine, for tuning in, Luke, lots of numbers on this morning. And I think you're spot on, Mark. The key thing is to go into the negotiations, which is
collaborations,
which is more of a collaboration with basically your sword down. When we're negotiating for people buying and selling, everyone's like, I'm trying to get the best over him, or I'm wanting the lowest price. Like, everyone's got sort of their armor up, everyone's guarded. Now, the biggest thing with this collaboration will be going in there with your swords down, as the analogy, and basically the truth has to be the strongest thing from a tenant side of view and an owner side as well.
It's not a rent-free period. There is no people, there's been talk about it, and this has not happened. There's been talk about, you can't kick me out of the property. This has not happened. It's saying you guys have to work it out. Like, a tenant is not to walk into this collaboration saying, hey, these are my rights, screw you, 6 months. Not at all. And a landlord is not to walk into that negotiation saying, get out of my property, you mug. Like, it is a collaboration of everyone.
Yeah.
Case by case.
And the more and more I sort of played in my head different outcomes, it's actually a very spot on move. I'm confident from our Prime Minister, and we've said in many of our morning minutes markets where he's advised by the best people in the country, if not the world. They make the decision, trust it, run with it. And like, I think it's a really, really good decision. Now, from an agent's point of view, I imagine now what I would be recommending is probably a meeting with the owners and the tenants in the office, probably via Zoom. We've done morning minutes on how you can do Zoom conferences, guys. So we're going to be needing to do Zoom conferences, chat with the tenant, because let's face it, some businesses are going really well and booming. And
look, guys, you got to get your paperwork right, Michael. You know, we're going into these meetings ill prepared, not prepared, unprepared. You're not going, no one. It's just going to take up more time for everyone. What we need to do going into these meetings is landlords, talk to your bank and find out your position.
That would be
step one for a landlord.
Yes.
Find out your position, because I've got to tell everyone, there is no free ride from these banks.
No.
If anyone thinks that because their landlord repayments have been potentially frozen for 3 months or 6 months, that does not mean the landlord is paying nothing ever again. The landlord has got it for free. If anything, the banks are deferring, and I want to use that word deferring, not free. It's deferring, 100%. Not free. So that works the same with tenants, and landlords may take that position, saying, we've deferred our payments to X amount of time. Now we want to defer your payments. So the whole free ride thing may not cut it, depending on each circumstance of each people. So number one, a landlord must talk to their bank to see the best terms that they can negotiate with their mortgage repayments.
100%. And I think you've got to go in there going, we're trying to make the best of the worst scenario. Any way sucks, face it. That's what it is for a landlord and a tenant. So number one. Now number two, as a tenant, you have to first of all have a business plan. Yes. Is your business going to survive? Can it survive? And I think sharing that business plan is important to make sure that there is a heartbeat there, and that you're not living in false hope that you can cash flow that. Discussing that a little around table as well. Now, also within that number 2 one, have you accessed government support? That's in a tribunal situation. They're going to ask, and they're going to want to know. So you may as well put that right on the table straight away. So, in your landlord meeting, yes, I've accessed my super here. Yes, I've accessed, tax benefits or whatever for my business. Yes, this is what I do. And then I think you've got to have something that's sustainable to put on the table to say, and I can afford this much. So it's not turning up saying zero. You need less sort of thing. Like, you've got to do some homework prior to it. It's almost like going to a bank for money, which is what it is, and they ask you to do a business plan. That's what you need to do. You need to look at your own position. I would even bring in what like this time last year was and what now, just to see
5 years worth. 5 years worth of trading and saying, look, this is what we've done. We've got a wonderful business. Now, the reason why I'm suggesting these sort of measures is, profits and losses. And if you've actually genuinely been trying to sort of dig yourself out of this mess in preparation to this meeting, the reason why this is going to come up in a tribunal anyway.
Yes.
In a tribunal situation, the tribunal member it's much like tribunal's a bit like going to a court. They're going to ask for the facts. So we may as well run that scenario as a group with real estate agent, with landlord, and with tenant, with compassion, with collaboration, and see what we can actually mitigate, see what we can mediate. Because I've got to tell you, this is going to be brought up and surfaced, if not now, later in a tribunal situation, potentially. So I think any tenant going in wanting a free ride, no. Any landlord going in not prepared to move off their position, it's a no as well. If the tenant has grounds under COVID-19.
Yes, because Mark, there's some businesses doing really well. They're shy to admit it right now, but some businesses have more business. So that you've got to really justify that you're affected. You also need to justify that you hadn't had a decline in business for the last 2 years, and this is an excuse. This will not be able to be used as an excuse. It's not a free ride. It's none of that. So everyone's initial reactions, throw them out, throw them in the bin, or that's out. So
and it's not limited to business either, Michael. If that landlord has lost has 3 tenants and lost 2 of their tenants, when they're negotiating with the 3rd tenant, that's got to be considered as well. 100%. If a tenant's wife has lost their job and they have a business, and their wife's lost their job and she's in another industry, and that's got to be it's got to be a holistic approach.
Yeah. And it's where that honesty comes in, and basically both parties being an open book, because if it's not done correctly at the beginning, it's just going to come out in a couple of months and be messier, because the one thing the Prime Minister said, it's like the bridge for 6 months. So it's a solution, or I think bite-sized chunks. Don't come up with the solution for 6 months. Come up with the plan, a 6-month plan, and have check-in points, if it's daily, weekly, or monthly, to monitor how both parties are going. I think be aware that there could be the collaboration working closely for a minimum 6 months, but I wouldn't be saying have a meeting one and just say, see you in 6 months. There should be some check-in points. I think what you've said, Mark, you need to go in. It's the landlord, guys. I think the best way to think about it is the landlord tenant agent collaboration meeting is not the first meeting. It's one of the last meetings. I'm getting a lot of calls from people saying, well, what can we get a rent reduction? And basically, have you chat with your bank? Have you looked at the government incentives? And it's all no.
Look, there's a fundamental flaw there. If you call your bank and say, can I have a rate reduction? What's the answer?
Yeah.
Right? The banks are not saying, sure, let's make 2.4% 0.4%. They're not saying that. No. The banks are saying, we're happy to vary terms, guys. We're happy to look at freezing this, extending the term, paying it at the end, amortizing it. The banks are not cutting checks to their clients. They're cutting terms. Yeah. So, I think prospective tenants going in that don't have a strong COVID-19 case, that are expecting, discounts, like, it's not going to happen.
100%. So, okay. So you've done the lead, because I think now's a great time to engage a financial planner or an accountant if you never have, because there are some great incentives from the government. I think they're offering up to 250K in basically a 0 interest loan for 3 to 9 months, but but they're still working out how to qualify for that on the credit side.
Great example, right? So who's going to pay it back?
That's exactly right. And that's where to look at. Like, nothing's free. It's deferred.
Nothing's free.
Nothing's free. You're paying more for it, actually. So if you can actually keep your regular mortgage payments going, you'll be better off, because this freezing, interest is still accruing, and you've actually extended your loan. So we all know, like, $1 over 30 years, maybe $5 paid back. It's a lot more. So if you don't have to use these incentives or doing it, then don't. So be truthful, because like you said, it's not a free ride. It's not a discount. It's going to be accruing. And as we all know, if you pay for something later, it's always more expensive than paying for it now. So that's the biggest thing to sort of wake up to.
Be really, really careful about it, guys. And also, I think I know that's going to be the approach with the banks. I know the landlords are potentially going in with that approach. And I know that tenants are going in some prospective tenants are going in thinking it's survival. I need help, and potentially some tenants are saying, "Hey, I'll have a go, have a hit."
Yeah.
And see.
The one thing I like about a lot of the incentives given, they are based on you basically continuing to do business, if not do more business. A lot of it is accessed from your spending with your BAS and your tax. So it's encouraging you. So that's where it comes down, Mark, that business plan. Like, there's no point getting a 250 grand loan from the government if you haven't made any changes for this period, because it's not just trying to keep your business. It's not just getting the money to pay rent and have your business closed for 6 months and hope you're back to how business was in January this year, in December this year. You may need to change how you do business and what you do as a business. So that's
the best way, Michael. It's the best way, because any of this government incentives, if you're going to get the dole from the government, you will pay for that in the future. If you are a business going to get your tax free up to X amount, you will pay for it in the future. The government is writing out checks that they're giving out with one hand, they will open their hand up and expect with the other hand over the next 3 to 5 years.
100%.
So I know that we need it now, and it's survival. Great. But it's also, we've got to be very careful that we're going to pay all this stuff back in time. If the government's paying dole checks of $1,100 a fortnight, they're going to want that back in future.
It's very true. Now, what else was in that conversation, Mark, from the Prime Minister, for anyone who didn't watch it? So,
I just thought it's a great approach. So it's just, it's case by case. Look, do they write out checks and just sort it out on the other end? Maybe. But I think that at the end of the day, they had to, what happened is they've left that qualification process to the business people rather than taking it into Centrelink and dealing with it.
Well, you know what, Mark, they've always done commercial property. It's always sort of been one to fend for yourself and work it out. So looking back, it's because a lot of the really baby policies they've brought in and in residential, they don't follow through to commercial, because it's like you've got your own business, work it out. Now, on that residential sector, Mark, there still hasn't been, the mandate is rent is still paid at the moment, and that's quite simple at the moment. That hasn't changed. We're all aware of plans and policies or things going through the Senate and that at the moment. When do you think we may hear something there for residential, Mark?
I reckon it's midweek. We'll have it midweek. And I think, again, are they going to be cutting checks, or are they going to be saying, guys, you work it out? I don't know. We certainly are talking as a large property management office. We're talking about a qualification process that a tenant must go through in order to ask for any sort of potential rent freeze. And those qualification processes are, have you lost your job due to COVID? Have you applied to government and received incentives because of COVID? Those sort of things. I think if you are looking for any relief under COVID, it's got to be displayed to the landlord that you are affected under COVID.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the same thing again. There's no handouts or free anything. It's all going to have to be paid back. So trying to not pay your rent for 2 months, you're going to be paying it in the long run. It may be added. So I think that's another big thing as well, Mark. If you're fortunate enough not to be affected, don't go try and see if you can rort the system. Would probably be a big advice. There's enough going on at the moment, I know. And I think the one reason why the government's gone down this path, Mark, is to think of all the red tape and checking they would have had to do. This way, it's you do it your own. You make your own decisions. You qualify it. It probably would have taken them years to make sure everything was truthful coming in. It's hard enough. So let me just read. We've got a lot of comments from Luke, which I love. Thanks for all the interaction, Luke. It's a great topic. I know you'll probably be doing a live based on this as well. Negotiations to help each other. Lots of viewers on this morning. It's going to change again and again. It's so true. This is what's discussed on Sunday may be totally irrelevant by Friday. It could have just been evolved and changed. The long-term thoughts from ScoMo is good. I'm thinking 12 months thoughts, maybe better. Catherine Squirchio, spot on. I like the collaboration. It has to be. It's got to be having a meeting with all parties without having your guns out, trying to see who you can screw as well. And I urge the last meeting is probably with your landlord. There's a lot of due diligence should be done before you meet with your owner. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
You got to come in prepped. You got
Yeah.
to come in prepped. And you know what? It's anything that's affected a landlord under COVID-19, personal and business. Anything that's affected a commercial tenant under COVID, personal and business. All of those things are tabled, discussed. A plan is made. A plan is put in place. We've got to collaborate. And it really is just a bridge to get to the other side. And I know the Prime Minister in his second last speech used the word bridge 4 times.
Yeah.
He was really, it was a very calculated, very strong word, and it is a bridge, yeah.
Well, it is. I think you're here. Everyone can imagine trying to get there and just getting there. And we want as many businesses to still be open when we all get to that bridge, because we will get there. It's moving. The bridge is being made. It's just, are you going to be on the bridge, basically, as that passes through? Any other key takeouts, Mark?
Be positive.
Yep. Stay
healthy. And yeah, be smart about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's a lot of work we've all got to do, but the great thing is that we're all in it together. Yeah. So just got to get through it.
Very true. Luke says we built the Harbour Bridge. Let's build this one. So true. I think
Good on Luke. Good on the legend.
Alrighty, guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning as well. Any updates? Any questions you guys have? Any questions regarding how, even scenarios? Feel free if you know any clients, friends who are in a scenario and you would like Mark and I to role play it. It's a bit more what our concepts are. Happy to do that as well. Happy to, if anyone's a business owner and wants to sort of role play that meeting that we recommend having with a landlord, happy to do that as well. So let us know how we can help, and we're here.
That's it. And look, and any of this talk of this can't get gets in now for 6 months. It's definitely true. It has passed, but it's called a legislation. If there is a legislation around domestic violence, it doesn't mean that domestic violence legislation applies to everyone. So I think people have got to be really conscious that there's been plenty of instruments passed through for real estate agents in the last year and in the last 5 years, and it doesn't mean that legislation applies to everyone. It means it may apply to someone, and they've thought it's strong enough to introduce legislation around it.
And that's for residential
and commercial.
Okay. Alrighty, guys.
That legislation's going through. I don't even actually know if it's been finalised and agreed and put through Parliament, but I certainly know it's been put up for approval. Very quickly, it'll probably get approved today if it hasn't already been approved. The documentation I read said proposed, and I believe that was the most recent documentation. But interesting stuff.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Cheers.
Legend. Cheers. Bye.